Have you ever left a conversation feeling exhausted and confused, as if you had fought a battle you didn't even know was happening? The shocking truth is that toxic people are masters at creating a mental chaos that sucks you into a vicious cycle of justification and reactivity. This subtle game not only steals your energy, but it plants seeds of doubt that make you question your own self-worth, losing your inner peace in the process. But what if there was a secret code to becoming mentally unreachable to these manipulators, using the same wisdom that Stoic philosophers used to protect their tranquility? In this guide, I will reveal the 7 psychological boundaries that are the key to this mental fortress, not only to protect you, but to give you the control to transform chaos into calm. If you are ready to stop playing their game and start dictating the rules of your own peace, your transformation begins now. If this guide already resonates with your search for inner power, solidify your decision to become unshakable. Like this video so this message of strength reaches more people who, like you, are ready to change. Comment below which of the 7 boundaries you commit to practicing today. Declaring your intention is the first step to mastery. Share this guide with someone you know is fighting a silent battle. Be the ally who offers the tools for victory. And most importantly, subscribe and turn on notifications. This isn't just a channel, it's our daily training ground. For self-mastery, join our community of minds that refuse to be manipulated. Boundary 1. Emotional non-reactivity, the fortress of composure. There exists a form of power that terrifies toxic people, a power that has nothing to do with shouting or arguing. It is the power of calmness, not a passive calmness, but a fortress of stoic composure. This is the unshakable stillness that comes from a conscious and disciplined refusal to take the emotional bait. Toxic individuals thrive on your reaction. Their modus operandi consists of pushing your buttons, not to see if you are okay, but simply to see which ones still work. They hurl words like poisoned darts, not because they are honest, but because they are chosen to make you flinch, defend yourself, and, ideally, overreact. The moment you react emotionally, you have surrendered control of your own mental cockpit. To understand this power, you must dissect the manipulator's game. Have you ever noticed how a narcissist suddenly shifts blame when confronted? Or how a passive-aggressive person says something seemingly harmless with a twist of sarcasm that poisons your day? These are not random acts, they are calculated moves. Their goal is to provoke a response, because your emotion is their fuel. Your anger validates their importance, your tears confirm their power, and your frantic explanations feed their superiority. The first and most revolutionary boundary you must establish is an internal declaration. I will not let toxic people determine my emotional state. This sounds simple, but its application is a radical act of personal sovereignty. The instant you stop reacting on their terms, you dismantle their control mechanism. You cut off their fuel, and the fire dies out. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus provided the foundation for this. If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. The Stoic interpretation is not to blame the victim, but to empower them. The provocation is external, but your mind's participation through reaction is an internal choice. In that space lies your ultimate freedom. This capacity for choice is what manipulators hate most. They despise it when their guilt trips fail, when their silent treatments no longer trigger your anxiety, and when you see through their manipulations without even flinching. This state is not detachment from fear. It is mastery through awareness. The secret they don't want you to know is that they rarely seek an honest resolution. They crave chaos. To attempt to reason with someone who has no interest in the truth is to willingly enter their arena, where your logic is irrelevant. This is why stillness and non-reactivity are the ultimate counterattacks. You are not ignoring reality, you are commanding your own, stating without words, "You no longer have the power to control how I feel." A practical guide to building non-reactivity. Mastering this boundary is like building a mental muscle. Implement the power of the pause. Before you respond, pause. 3 seconds of deliberate silence are enough to sever the connection between provocation and your reflexive reaction. This small gap is where you reclaim your power, shifting you from a character in their drama to the director of your own response. Ground yourself in the physical. When you feel hooked, shift your focus from your racing mind to your body. Breathe deeply. Feel your feet firm on the ground. Consciously slow your heartbeat. This pulls you out of the abstract chaos into the concrete present. Name the game internally. Create a mental trigger. When you recognize a tactic, label it in your mind. This is emotional bait. I don't have to take it. This internal narration creates crucial psychological distance. Embrace observation. Your strength lies in your observation, not your defense. Speak less and watch more. Watch them squirm when they don't get the reaction they crave. Your calm presence becomes a mirror. Become selectively responsive. Emotional non-reactivity is not about becoming numb. It is about becoming selectively responsive. You still feel and care, but you choose with deliberation where to invest your precious emotional energy. Boundary 2. Strategic silence, the weapon of stillness. In our relentlessly noisy world, choosing silence is a rebellion. And when dealing with toxic people, silence becomes a form of psychological warfare. Why is silence so potent? Because the manipulator's entire game is predicated on your response. They need your explanation to twist, your anger to feed on, and your need to be understood to exploit. When you refuse to play, when you meet calculated provocation with quiet stillness, you strip them of the one thing they need to control you, your emotional engagement. Silence in this context is not a passive act. It is a strategic and decisive power move. This is not the silence of weakness. It is the deliberate, contained silence of Stoicism, a conscious refusal to be dragged into their emotional vortex. This silence is a clear message. I see what you are trying to do, and I am not participating. This is one of the highest expressions of emotional intelligence. Toxic people generally do not fear confrontation. They fear disconnection and ultimately irrelevance. Their power is derived from the access they have to your mind. When you stop explaining yourself, your silence becomes their worst nightmare. The message they receive is devastating. I no longer have access to this person's reality. For someone who thrives on control, this realization is psychologically annihilating. The psychology behind this is rooted in mirroring. Manipulative individuals need to see themselves reflected in your reactions to feel important. If they hurt you and you scream, they feel important. If you cry, they feel powerful. If you argue, they feel superior. But when you remain quiet, they begin to unravel. They are left alone with their own thoughts, a state a toxic mind despises. How to wield silence as a shield. Building this silent force requires discipline. It's about containment, the ability to feel anger without being moved by it. Know when to stop talking. Not every accusation deserves a rebuttal. Not every misunderstanding needs your lengthy explanation. Learn to recognize when your words are no longer building bridges, but are simply providing more ammunition. Let the silence stretch. Most people are uncomfortable with silence. Don't be one of them. Let them feel the weight of their own words hanging in the air. This is a subtle but powerful transfer of pressure. Master your nonverbal communication. Your silence is amplified by your body language. Maintain a still, calm posture. Breathe evenly. Do not flinch. Your body should communicate the same message. I am unmoved. Understand that walking away is a complete sentence. Sometimes the most powerful form of silence is your absence. Exiting. A toxic conversation is not a defeat. It is a declaration of your boundaries. Use strategic pauses. Even if you intend to respond, inserting a 5-second pause can make you look 10 times more powerful, signaling that you are choosing your response with deliberation, not impulse. Boundary 3. Strategic unavailability, the power of scarcity. In the modern age, constant connection has created an implicit social contract of perpetual availability. People expect you to be emotionally available and digitally on call at all hours. This expectation is fertile ground for manipulators. They are masters at exploiting this perceived obligation, blurring lines and interpreting your ready availability not as generosity, but as permission to invade your peace. A timeless Stoic truth serves as a powerful antidote. You lose power the moment you become too easy to reach. Access is control. The more consistently available you are, the more a manipulator learns your rhythms. The more they study your responses, the more accurately they can predict your behavior and shape your reality through strategic intrusions. Think of the narcissist who calls with a manufactured crisis when they know you are busiest, or the drama-filled friend who trauma dumps just before your important day. They do not respect your time because you have not yet taught them to. Boundaries, therefore, are not just about what you say no to. They are about what you stop giving instant access to. The Stoics practiced intentional withdrawal, not from ego, but to remain anchored in their inner world. They understood that your energy is sacred and your peace is the foundation of your clarity. When you consciously reduce your emotional availability, toxic people start to panic. Their panic arises because they no longer have control over when and how you show up. At first, their attempts to contact you will likely get louder. They will employ guilt-tripping language, accusing you of being cold or selfish. But if you hold firm, they eventually realize, this person is no longer reacting on my terms. That is the moment the power shift begins, because you are no longer just emotionally available, you are mentally sovereign. How to enforce strategic unavailability. Being strategically unavailable doesn't mean becoming a hermit. It is a targeted strategy. It means you stop feeling obligated to explain yourself to those who distort the truth. Your attention becomes earned, not expected. Master the delayed response. Just because someone reaches out does not mean you must reply instantly. Give yourself permission to respond on your own timeline. Schedule your availability. Block out periods in your day for focused work or recovery and treat these appointments with yourself as non-negotiable. Stop explaining your silence. You do not owe anyone an emotional invoice for every quiet moment. The need to justify your silence feeds their entitlement to your time. Limit digital access. Make liberal use of tools. Mute toxic threads. Use do not disturb mode and block if needed. This isn't cruelty, it's self-respect. Embrace I'm not available. Learn to say I'm not available for that. This phrase is powerful, clear, and final, requiring no further justification. Remember the principle of scarcity. What is rare becomes valuable, while what is always available is taken for granted, then resented and finally exploited. By making your presence less common, you make it more valuable. Boundary 4. No justification. The power of the unexplained. No. A sentence you must internalize until it becomes a core belief is, stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. This principle is one of the most liberating yet difficult boundaries to enforce. Toxic people exploit our social conditioning for politeness masterfully, convincing you that you owe them a reason for every boundary you set. If you fall into this trap, you will spend your life negotiating your peace with individuals who never intended to respect it. Within a toxic dynamic, explaining is not a path to resolution, it is a manipulation opportunity. When they ask, "Why didn't you answer?" or "Why can't we just talk this out like adults?" they are not seeking truth. They are seeking access. The more you explain, the more material you give them to twist, interrupt, and gaslight. They plant seeds of doubt, watching as you unravel from within. This is not a conversation. It is control. Masquerading as dialogue, they count on your guilt reflex. They don't want the truth, they want leverage. A stoic mind doesn't require the world's validation to know its own truth. When you make a choice rooted in your values, you are not required to turn it into a courtroom drama. You simply act. You must embrace a concept that flips the game. No is not the beginning of a negotiation. It is the end of a transaction. The moment you offer your no, and then silence is when your power consolidates. In that silent space, the manipulator's tools become useless. How to build this boundary? Building this boundary requires actively fighting the guilt reflex. Pre-commit to your no. Decide your boundary when you are calm, not under pressure. This pre-commitment acts as an anchor. Speak with finality. When you state your boundary, use a calm, low tone. Be brief and speak with an air of finality, with no hint of apology. Expect pushback. Say nothing more. A manipulator will push and back. Expect it. When it comes, your job is to say nothing more. Let their discomfort remain with them. Practice internal validation. The antidote to needing external approval is internal validation. Repeat mantras. My peace does not require their approval. This is the foundation of self-mastery. Boundary 5. Strategic unpredictability. The art of breaking patterns. Toxic people do not just hurt you. They study you with the focus of a scientist. They watch how you react, observe what triggers you, and meticulously catalog your patterns. If they can predict you, they can control you. But when you move with calm detachment instead of emotional reflex, they lose their script. You become unreadable. And in the world of manipulation, the unreadable is unbreakable. Toxic manipulators love patterns because patterns create predictability, and predictability is the foundation of their control. If they know a guilt trip makes you cave, they will use it. If they know raising their voice gets a response, they will raise it. If they have learned that crying gets you to stay, tears will appear on cue. You think you are dealing with someone genuinely in pain, but you are dealing with someone who has memorized your emotional blueprint. Their strategy only works as long as you keep reacting predictably. The Stoics trained themselves to react less impulsively. They understood that every time you react instinctively, you give away valuable data about your inner world. But when you respond calmly or not at all, you become unreadable. And unreadable people are terrifying to manipulators because their entire game depends on your predictability. When you break that, you break their system. Imagine the typical cycle. They blame you, you defend, they escalate, you panic, they apologize, and you forgive. Now picture this. They blame you and you pause, saying nothing. No defense, no argument. They escalate again, louder, but still you offer nothing. Suddenly, they are alone in this chaos they created. That silence, that unpredictability is not passivity, it is psychological dominance. How to cultivate unpredictability? You do not have to become cold. You simply have to become less obvious. Audit your emotional reflexes. Take an honest inventory of your patterns. What is your go-to response when you feel guilted, angered, or ignored? Acknowledge it without judgment. Create a new default response. Your new default to any provocation should be to pause. Before you speak, count to 5. Let the initial wave of emotion pass without acting on it. Respond with calm, detached questions. Instead of reacting defensively, try a calm question like, "What makes you say that?" This shifts the focus back to them. Drop the need to be understood. Let go of the need to clarify everything. Let them stew in their misunderstanding. It is where their illusion of control breaks. Train in detachment. This is an active practice. Meditate, journal, and rehearse, staying calm under pressure. Treat your composure not as a mood, but as a weapon. Boundary 6. Controlled exposure, the sanctity of your inner world. There is a fundamental principle of self-preservation you must embrace. You are not obligated to show your full, authentic self to every person you meet. Your energy, your truth, your dreams, and your vulnerabilities are sacred. The moment you hand them out indiscriminately, you lose power. Toxic people thrive on emotional access. They study your fears and are experts at weaponizing your story against you. That is why one of the most strategic boundaries is controlled exposure. Not everyone deserves to see all of you. The more a manipulator knows about you, the easier it is to control you. They learn what triggers your guilt and what makes you second-guess yourself. Toxic people are psychological hackers, and your oversharing is their backdoor access. When you overshare too soon, you are not fostering intimacy. You are handing them a manual on how to control you. But when you practice emotional minimalism, you become unreadable and thus ungovernable. Many confuse authenticity with total transparency, but true authenticity is discernment. The Stoics practiced a measured presence, knowing how to be sincere without becoming vulnerable to predators. You can be kind and private, warm and guarded. Ask yourself the diagnostic questions from the source. Do I feel drained after conversations with certain people? Do I catch myself revealing things just to connect or feel accepted? If yes, you are bleeding emotional energy and it's time to recalibrate. How to practice controlled exposure. You do not have to shut down completely. You simply need to shift your default from open access to intentional release. Implement the 3 tiers of access. Visualize your inner world with 3 rings. Public access. For casual interactions, offer politeness and surface-level friendliness. Tested trust. For those who have demonstrated consistency, safety, and emotional maturity over time. Access is granted slowly. Sacred inner circle. Reserved for the few who have proven their loyalty and trustworthiness without a doubt. Delay disclosure. Take time in new relationships to assess character before revealing personal information. Let them earn the right to know you more deeply. Mirror before you share. Pay attention to how much the other person shares about themselves. A healthy relationship involves a balanced, reciprocal exchange. Use ambiguity. Strategically, you do not have to lie to protect your privacy. A polite but ambiguous response like, "I'm working on some personal goals," is sufficient. Be a student of their character. The most reliable indicator of how someone will treat your secrets is how they treat the secrets of others. If they gossip to you, they will gossip about you, always. Boundary 7. Strategic redirection. The art of frame control. There is a silent skill that the most powerful people possess, the ability to redirect. It is the subtle but decisive ability to redirect a conversation, the energy and the focus, without ever lowering their standards or engaging in conflict. This is perhaps the most advanced boundary. Toxic people are masters at hooking your attention and pulling you into their frame. They provoke and drop loaded questions like conversational landmines. So you think you're better than everyone now? These are not genuine questions. They are traps, each designed to pull you into a pre-written psychological script where they are the victim and you are the villain. The moment you start explaining yourself to someone committed to misunderstanding you, you have already lost the frame. A Stoic does not win arguments within a broken frame. A Stoic refuses to engage on any terms that cost them their inner peace. This is the essence of redirection. It is not about denying the provocation, but about calmly refusing to play their game. Instead of saying, "You're twisting my words," you redirect by stating your own standard. "I'm not here to argue over intentions." These responses are short, clear, and offer no emotional payoff for the manipulator. Redirection in action. The guilt trip. Must be nice to just ignore everyone and live in your own little world. Weak response. I'm not ignoring you, don't take it personally. Stoic redirection. I protect my space. It's nothing personal, just essential. The gaslighter. You're too sensitive. I was just joking. Weak response. It didn't feel like a joke. Stoic redirection. Respect isn't a joke to me. That's my standard. The demand for explanation. You've changed. You're not as available anymore. Weak response. Yeah, sorry, I've had a lot on my plate. Stoic redirection. I've grown. My priorities reflect that. Each act of redirection reclaims your emotional authority and closes the door on manipulation with quiet confidence. Psychologically, redirection starves toxic people of what they crave most. Your reactivity. When you redirect, you hold the frame, choose the energy, and steer the moment. The Stoics understood a fundamental law. You do not get what you deserve, you get what you tolerate. People watch your patterns. If you consistently forgive betrayal, you teach that betrayal is acceptable. If you respond to manipulation with softness, you teach them to sharpen their games. If you stay after being disrespected, you have taught them that you do not require their respect. Your very presence is a classroom, and you are teaching others how to treat you every day. The 7 psychological boundaries are the curriculum for this classroom. They are the tools by which you transform yourself from a passive student of others' behavior into the master of your own inner world. They are, as the source suggests, the bridges to your highest self. They thought they could control you with confusion and wear you down with guilt. But you can outgrow the game, not through fighting, but by building a mind they can no longer manipulate. When you master these principles, you are not just walking away from toxic people, you are walking back home to your peace, your power, and your principles. Let them wonder why you changed. Let your silence and composure become the loudest and most impenetrable boundary of all, because now you no longer need to prove your worth. You simply live it. Now that you have the theoretical tools to build your mental fortress, the next step is to put them into practice. If the concept of strategic redirection particularly caught your attention, I've prepared another video that details specific conversational techniques to disarm a narcissist in real time. Click the video on the screen now to continue your training and master this crucial skill.